Thank you. So it was interesting when I was contacted to come talk here that it's sort of near and dear to my heart when it comes to entrepreneurship and actually skills used within the ICT sector. I guess, obviously, you've heard many, many times, what is ICT? You've all seen this. Anybody really understand that? Yeah? Well, how would you describe this? What is this?
In a device capable of transferring a data either physically or wirelessly.
Yeah? And then how would you describe that to your grandmother?
How would I describe that?
Exactly. What's that? A wizard did it? Well, that could be, yes. That could be something you could use as well. Basically when it comes to this is that we're looking for anything that's going to benefit or improve your life. Technology is always used in order to facilitate something, to make it better, faster, more effective, more efficient. And a lot of times when you see ICT, the first thing out of your head is like, okay, there's some tech guy sitting down behind a box somewhere working away. Well, that's part of it. And we're going to talk a bit more about that. Does anybody know what the value is in New Brunswick of the ICT sector? How much revenue generates per year? Anybody? Oh, I wish. It would be great. But it is significant. $400 million and a population of only 750,000 in a province. That's pretty significant. So, this is what people think of when they think of New Brunswick, especially Saint John. It's all about heavy industry, heavy industry, heavy industry. We're building this. We have big projects. We've got LaPro down the coast. We're going to do all kinds of things here. We've got a new refinery coming up. And what's interesting is that as we're seeing with the economic change that's going on, when you look around you, you're saying, you talk to people, some people are really pessimistic, others like very optimistic. I'm going to be optimistic. And there's many reasons for that. Because currently, right now, what you're seeing is a transition that's occurring. We're moving from this, and this comes back to some point Jeff brought up. We're coming now more into this sort of distributed world. Anything can be done anywhere now. I don't have to worry about placing myself in one spot to do a particular thing. All of a sudden, I can be everywhere at once. It's a knowledge economy. How do I take all this information that I've gathered over the years through all these industries and bring them together, and what can I do with that? How can I make that more meaningful to me? So, this particular world was created by some interesting folks, okay? I know some of these guys. And I'm sure as we've gone through the years in school, we've chatted with them, we've seen them. Some of you I know are out there. What's interesting is that these folks looked at things a little bit differently. They were interested in a little bit of the detail. And what's really cool is that these folks went on to grow and build this sort of network of things. And then they had kids. You might recognize some of these ones. Anybody recognize these guys? Okay. These folks, and I want you to look at this carefully because I'm going to talk a little bit further about this when we get into talking about some skills. But I love this show because I know somebody who's one of these people in my life, okay? It's fascinating. But these folks really have made a significant contribution. What have they done? Well, they've done things like Facebook and Google. Those kids have created this. They've gone through their education. A little kid sitting in his dorm room says, I want to create Facebook. Look at where we are. And we have Google as well. But what a lot of people don't know is we have our own little smaller size, but we have our same things that have happened here and are continually happening. A couple of notable ones. Obvious, Radian 6. Does anybody know what Radian 6 does? Oh, we've got one in the back. Anybody else? They sure do. They sure do. And why do you think they do that?
They want to know what people think about brands. What's the attitude of the consumer? How can we change it? How can we fix it? How can we make it better?
Exactly. They're out there monitoring the conversations that are happening, which Jeff had talked about. And it's so valuable, in fact, that after only being 4.5 years in existence, that a major corporation in the US bought them for $326 million from an idea. Another company, Q1 Labs, a little bit longer, but again, huge. So when we look at this, we say, okay, well, let me ask you a question. Does anybody know what the combined investment and exits that have occurred in the past 18 months in this region? 100-kilometer radius. This may surprise you. I hope it does. That surprise anybody? It needs to. Because what it's telling you is that we're here doing business. ICT is creating wealth that's here. This is big stuff where many people can be involved. And when you're talking to kids and you're teaching and you're going on about opportunities, traditional economies, they'll still be there, but not to the size and scale that we've anticipated they would be. It's now the knowledge economy, and everybody plays in that. Here's some stats just for Saint John. 7.5% unemployment, lowest in the province. Record shipments out of the port. Economic growth up 2.4%. I can go on. You can look at your community and your province and the region in a pessimistic sense. You can choose to go that route. Say, there's all these challenges. And people will say that. Kids, when they go home, they hear about these challenges all the time. They have parents that are in traditional industries. Industries that have been falling apart, the wheels are off the cart, they're changing. And the first thing they say to their kids is, you got to get your education and get out of here. That's not the case. There are huge opportunities here. What comes of that? You know, in the IT sector, no matter boom or bust, it still continues to climb. Because when it's bust, people want technology to help them save money. When it's boom, they want technology to help them make more money. There's always a hunger. So this is something that's kind of interesting. I love this picture. Twice as many kids aged 2 to 5 can play with a smartphone application as tie their shoelaces. Okay? More 2 to 3-year-olds can play a computer game than ride a bike. 2/3 of young children can operate a computer mouse. More small children can open a web browser than swim unaided. This is how ubiquitous technology is. And when Jeff was talking about usability, he's not kidding. When I can hand over my iPad and the kid can go like this and do what he wants to do, and what it sets it up for is we're in an age of information. You can get knowledge anywhere now. It makes your jobs harder. Okay? So the question is, what do you focus on? Skills. When it comes to skills, you know, it's not just the math, the science, all that sort of thing. We can get there. Yes, we can teach about that. We can get the information. You can get the information anywhere. But what's more important, especially to me as an employer, is this. This is the most important thing for ICT, period. And I'll argue anyone into the ground on it. You got to process information. You got to be able to reason it, evaluate it, be creative with it, inquire. You've got to be able to expand and stretch. You've got to be able to encourage that to happen. That's what draws the best out of people. And when I look for an employee, I'm assuming you're coming in with things that you've learned. but I know a lot of educated derelicts. Brilliant people, they'll come into my office, they'll tell me exactly what they know, but they can't seem to find their way through a problem on their own. They can't rise to the occasion. You know, I used to use when I interview programmers, I'd have this question I'd always ask at the end. And it wasn't necessarily, what's the right answer? I was more concerned with, how do they go through the problem? And I'll ask all of you this right now. You're all sitting here today, and there's 3 light switches over in this wall. And by just walking from here upstairs into the hallway, there are 3 light bulbs. You need to tell me which light switch goes with which light bulb. You can only walk from here to there, that's it. Do you know how many people told me that was impossible to figure out? A lot. They never did work for me. Okay? The next level of people will come to me and say, well, can I rip out the wall along the way and follow the lines? And I go, well, no, unfortunately, you can't. But that was good. Because they were looking at the problem, trying to think of a solution. I like those people. Has anybody heard this question before, by any chance? Okay. So, what you end up doing, the real answer, which is not the most important thing, but the real answer to this, is that make sure they're all in off position, turn 2 of them on for 10 minutes, turn 1 of the 2 off. You'll walk upstairs, you'll find 1 light bulb off that's cold, 1 that's warm, and 1 that's lit. The intent of that question was to test this. I want to see how far you can go to figure out a question. Because I don't want you running to me every 5 minutes saying it can't be done and making me do what I'm paying you to do. It shows that there are different levels of complexities and different models of looking at problems, which is very important to me. And making sure that someone can come in with these skills is very important. Now, I want to talk a bit about the people. Once you have these skills, I've often heard a lot, and I have experienced it, that there's not a lot of women in our industry. And what I find fascinating, because I have someone here in the audience who you're going to meet up front here soon, and basically what I find with women in particular, when it comes to any type of software development, they are the most brilliant business analysts, period. Hands down, bury any male under the table any time of day. Because they understand complexity. That's how they're wired. They can multitask like no one I can't. It's because of the way they're wired. And the women, you know what I'm talking about. There's so much benefit that women bring to the ICT sector, it's unreal. But somehow, some way, we seem to be convinced that you need all kinds of different things. Yes, it's important to have sciences. Yes, it's important to have math. But understanding what the jobs are in the sector and how they can be applied, it's countless different positions. And it's important to communicate that to your students, because there are big opportunities. You know, because not all the folks that work with me, you know, look like this. But the point is that there are huge opportunities for everyone in the industry. And as long as you can impart onto people how to think, how to look at something, how to tear it apart, how to put it back together, those are real skills that are applicable across any job. It helps them in all facets of their life. Because again, these kids can get information. I can get information anywhere. I can find a tick on a camel's backside in the middle of Sahara with Google if I need to. So with this, another thing that I want to talk about is this. What's this? I found some of the most prolific ICT sector people who do so much work and are so creative and so forth all play some type of instrument. And I found that really interesting, and I thought about that for a long time. And through a few friends, we had a discussion, and I'm thinking, well, why is it that they're like this? Like, why can they just nail this stuff to the wall? They seem to be these, ninja in a cubicle. They can get everything done. They can solve any problem. Well, what I found is that musicians are kind of unique in terms of how they deal with something. And that is failure. Anyone who plays an instrument will tell you how many times it took to learn that chord structure. They kept screwing it up, they kept coming apart, they couldn't quite get it right, and they'll try and learn something over and over and over, and every time they're failing, until finally that, through tenacity, and through the fact that they just know that they can get this, they keep believing they can get this. They hear it in their head. The failure then becomes a success. All too often, we don't teach people about failure. Okay? I myself have had employees who were so terrified to fail that they literally froze in what they were doing. Everyone. How many people here have failed at something? Would you say, in the end, it was probably a good experience? Yes? Hands? Okay. And why was it a good experience? Anybody? Right. You actually took something away of value that imprinted on you. Yeah. Exactly. Absolutely. Yes. And you need to do that. And you also need to encourage people that it's okay. This happens in my office all the time. We're doing something. I say, are you going to own it? And they go, yes. I said, okay. The outcome is yours. If you believe in it, great. If the outcome wasn't the greatest, I say, okay, well, if they can't tell me what happened and why, and what they're going to change about it, then I've got a real issue with you. But I encourage that. I know we don't want catastrophic. I don't want the company to go under, but the point is to get the mentality through, that you can work through this, and don't be afraid of it. Embrace it because it builds who you are. So, similar to your sign, right? You must think of failure and defeat as the springboards to new achievements or to the next level of accomplishment. It's your stepping stone. It just means you haven't learned something. Get at it, learn it, get on with it. No big deal here. Have a listen.
Dismissed from drama school with a note that read, "Wasting her time. She's too shy to put her best foot forward." Turned down by the Decca recording company who said, "We don't like their sound and guitar music is on the way out." A failed soldier, farmer, and real estate agent. At 38 years old, he went to work for his father as a handyman. Cut from the high school basketball team, he went home, locked himself in his room, and cried. A teacher told him he was too stupid to learn anything, and he should go into a field where he might succeed by virtue of his pleasant personality. Fired from a newspaper because he lacked imagination and had no original ideas. His fiancée died, he failed in business twice, he had a nervous breakdown, and he was defeated in 8 elections. If you've never failed, you've never lived.
How true is that? These are fantastic people. So, the interesting thing about failure is failure and learning about failure actually sets you up for something that's absolutely beautiful. Something that I like to call entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurs. Being able to take a risk. Not having the fear to try something. Knowing that an outcome could be one way or the other. But doing everything you can to get the best outcome. You often hear about the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that kept falling on their face. Oh my gosh, the stories. They're fantastic. Like a badge of honor. Stand up, they get out, they do it again. Because failure is just another step. It's just a springboard to the next thing. When you're talking about entrepreneurship, you know, my mother always would laugh. She always tells a story about when I was a kid. She said, I get so angry with you. Because I went out in the neighborhood, and I got an egg carton, and I put some dirt in it, and I put a seed in it, and I went around the neighborhood selling these little flowers that weren't even grown yet for 25 cents. She was furious, okay? Gave me hell, asked me what I was doing it for, and what I was doing it for was I wanted to get her a Mother's Day gift. She was devastated, okay? But what she realized is that when it comes to being an entrepreneur, there's no thought about anything else around you other than the goal at hand. I wasn't concerned that anybody was going to be upset. I wasn't concerned about any of that. I said, I got to go, I'm going to get Mom a Mother's Day gift, and how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? I'm going to do it this way. And I did it. Because nothing else matters around me. Now, you're saying, Chris, this is great, you know, it's good, but you really shouldn't be cognizant of a few things? Well, yeah, you should. If anything, you need to have a little bit more what I refer to as literacy. And this comes back to programs that you folks teach. When it comes to business, no one expects you to know everything. And if you do, I want to meet you because you are incredible. But what you do need to be aware of are certain things. Have some sort of a literacy or at least a working knowledge. You may not be an expert in something, and other things you may. You write a business plan. Do you understand what a company structure is? What are key assets? What about funding? How do I find money for this? And, you know, what do I call my company? What does it really mean if I call my company this or that? Also understanding market and people. How are you going to interact with them? And sales, what does that really mean? These are things that you don't have to know in huge amount of detail, but you definitely have to be aware of. You know, one of the great programs out there to provide this kind of literacy is Junior Achievement. But it's also something you can roll back into your own classes as well, through discussions and thoughts and ideas. So, when we come to this, I'm going to ask everybody here, what do you think motivates me or Jeff or someone else to be an entrepreneur? Just a little bit. What do you think motivates us to want to go out there and just make this happen? Anybody have an idea? What's that? Yeah. Anything else? Challenge, learning, yeah. Money? Yeah. Yeah. So here's a little thing I picked up off the Oxford site. Money, 12%. The challenge, yes, 30%. Independence. Every entrepreneur I know, they make the absolute worst employee. Make a great boss, but they're the worst employee you could possibly have. Because this little trap doesn't shut. Because they always have an opinion on something else. Something could be better, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this. Drives management nuts. So independence is a big one. And then there are other things as well. But you know, when it comes to entrepreneurs, we're all crazy, really, when you look at it. We take risks, we do all these things, but all of them fall back from skills that we've gathered along the way, some literacy that we've gotten along the way. Because we're out there thinking all the time, what's the idea that's going to change the world? And I'll leave you with a little short vignette. You know, like them or hate them or otherwise, this particular little video and the voiceover is so apt, and it's so true. And I'm going to leave it with you to to hang in the air to think about this. And Jeff, this one's for you.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
So my challenge to all of you is to help produce one of those folks. Do the best that you can to give them, help them with their skills. Help them, give them some literacy, and encourage them become the best they can be, which I know you do already. But we need more of those. And in my estimation, based upon what I know, and actually being from this school, I can honestly say you're all capable of it, and every other school as well. So thank you for your attention.